Hello friends, welcome back for another year in review. I gotta admit, this video was sort of hard to wrap my head around because 2016 was a really difficult year for a lot of us in a lot of ways, and it was not the most fun thing going back and reliving so much of it. So please bear with me as we go through all of that because a lot of really good stuff happened in 2016 too, and so we shouldn't forget about that and should try to focus on it as much as we can. So let's start with the big orange elephant in the room. Donald Trump was elected President of the United States. Donald Trump was elected President. Donald Trump was elected President. Donald Trump was elected President. It's like I want to click my heels together 3 times and wake up in a different place and find out it was all a bad dream. But it is not a bad dream, and so it looks like our next president is an ignorant, racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, petulant, narcissistic, lying piece of... But you knew that already. Now, Trump is generally pretty anti-LGBT. He opposes marriage equality, he has supported discriminatory religious freedom laws, he's been murky on trans issues, but he doesn't hold a candle to our next vice president, Mike Pence. As the governor of Indiana, Mike Pence championed this bill that would have basically legalized discrimination against LGBT people. It goes without saying that he's anti-marriage equality and opposes trans people's rights to use affirming bathrooms. But what might be the grossest thing of all is that he actually advocated for taking funding away from HIV/AIDS care and putting it towards conversion therapy. Yeah, vice president. That's our next vice president. Now, there isn't really a bright side to the Trump-Pence hellfire that we're in for the next 4 years, but for a moment of levity, it is cool to note that there's a gay man in New York who looks just like Mike Pence, so he's walking around in short shorts and using his doppelganger status to raise money for organizations like Planned Parenthood and the Trevor Project. That's the Mike Pence I want to see in the world. By far the most devastating thing to happen to our communities this year... Oh God, I can't even talk about it. By far the most devastating thing to happen to our community this year was the massacre at Pulse, the gay nightclub in Orlando where a gunman killed 49 people, most of them LGBT and Latinx. Pulse brought a show of community among LGBT people like nothing I've ever seen before, and in a lot of us it brought up these really strong dual feelings of both heartbreak and terror, but also love and community and solidarity. I know that I'm still processing it 6 months later, as are many of you, and there's a chance that we'll never get over it, and maybe we shouldn't, but we'll definitely never forget it, and we'll never forget them. In fact, the Pulse nightclub itself is being turned into a memorial for those 49 people, which is a really heartbreaking but really beautiful thing. This was a big year for conversion therapy, with many more jurisdictions either banning or preparing to ban the practice. For example, it was outlawed in the cities of Pittsburgh and Seattle, the state of Vermont, and the nation of Malta. One county in New York even named their bill Prevention of Emotional Neglect and Childhood Endangerment, which, you will notice, spells out Pence. Oops. Year after year, we keep waiting and working for the epidemic of violence against transgender people to end. But unfortunately, this year was the most devastating to date in terms of the murders of trans people. As is consistently the case, the majority of the victims were trans women of color. That means more people than ever are talking about it and working to end it, but obviously it hasn't been enough. So especially my fellow cis and white people out there, we have to step up and do more. Speaking of trans communities and trans rights, this year has been groundbreaking in so many ways. The Obama administration issued guidance that basically said trans students must be treated as the gender they identify with at school, from sports teams to bathrooms to locker rooms and everything else. Then a coalition of states got together to sue the government so they could continue discriminating against trans students, but so far, that's not going well for them. Too bad, so sad. The debate specifically about bathrooms has an unofficial spokesperson in Gavin Grimm, a trans student who sued his school district when he was barred from using the men's bathroom. Most recently, the Supreme Court agreed to hear his case, which could majorly set the stage for trans rights in the future. The National Center for Transgender Equality released its U.S. Trans Survey, this huge, massive, groundbreaking survey of 27,000 transgender people in the United States on issues from education to health to safety to relationships and everything else. And it was announced that healthcare providers that receive federal funding must cover transition-related care, which makes it infinitely easier for lots and lots of trans people to access the care they need. So that's a really good thing. Of course, then there's the bad with the good. North Carolina passed HB 2, which first banned trans people from using affirming bathrooms, and second, banned cities and counties from creating their own local ordinances to protect LGBT people against discrimination. But there was a huge national uproar over the law, which lost North Carolina millions of dollars and tons of jobs. In fact, the incumbent governor, Pat McCrory, lost his bid for re-election partly because of his refusal to repeal HB 2. Bye now. The most recent development is that North Carolina struck a deal with the city of Charlotte, which is where they passed a non-discrimination ordinance that actually inspired HB 2. The deal was that Charlotte would repeal its non-discrimination ordinance, and then North Carolina would repeal HB 2 entirely. But that didn't happen. Charlotte held up its end of the deal and repealed LGBT protections, but North Carolina legislators didn't repeal HB 2. So, I don't know what's next. Kinda sucks. So next, let's talk about the year in coming out, because it was a great one for visibility, especially for bi women. Shout out to my fellow bi ladies. So on the list just of women who came out as bi, and I have a cheat sheet here that I'm going to use because otherwise I couldn't remember all the names, we have Mara Wilson, Stephanie Beatriz, Aubrey Plaza, Amanda Stenberg, Bella Thorne, Sarah Ramirez, Lauren Jorgui? Is that how you say her name? I don't know. And probably some others, which is really cool. And in terms of other people who came out across the LGBT spectrum, let's go back to my cheat sheet. There was Lily Wachowski, Brian Anderson, Gigi Gorgeous, Elizabeth Gilbert, Elena Del Don, Trey Pearson, Colton Haynes, Jordan Raskopoulos, Charlie Carver, and certainly more people who I forgot, so please add them in the comments if I forgot them. The more the merrier. Welcome and congratulations to all of you. So happy to have you here. However, speaking of queer women, this year was a big bummer for us on TV, with way too many popular shows giving into the trope that's called dead lesbian syndrome and killing off their queer female characters. I won't name all the shows in case you're behind and you somehow haven't heard about it, but let's just say it was a lot, and the internet also noticed and called it out, so yay internet, I guess. Oof, that was a lot of bad news, so let's end with some cheerful anecdotes like I promised. The state of Oregon voted to legally recognize non-binary genders, which is a huge deal and so cool, you guys, we are getting there! The word gender fluid was added to the Oxford English Dictionary, and the words cisgender and genderqueer were added to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which are two big developments for recognizing that gender is a big wobbly spectrum and it does not begin or end at male and female. Planting Peace, the organization that owns the house across the street from the Westboro Baptist Church and painted it rainbow, also bought the house next door and painted it with the colors of the trans pride flag. Chris Mosier is a trans athlete who had a kick-ass year. He was the first trans athlete to ever appear in a Nike ad, he went to the Olympics, and he did a bunch of other cool stuff, participating in a bunch of championships and appearing in media like no trans athlete ever has before, so right on, Chris. The Stonewall Inn was named a national monument by the Obama administration, making it the first national monument dedicated to the LGBT rights movement, which is pretty cool. For the first time ever, there was a lesbian Miss America contestant. Erin O'Flaherty, aka Miss Missouri, didn't win the national crown, but she did send the message that lesbians too can be nationally recognized beauty queens. I don't know why I'm giggling saying that. And finally, a transgender Girl Scout named Stormy was inspired to sell thousands and thousands of boxes of cookies after a grown-ass man made transphobic comments to her when she was selling them door to door. She donated some of the cookies to kids in foster care systems because she was a foster kid herself, and she wants them to know, and I quote, that kids like her are perfect just the way they are. There's good left in the world. I believe there is. There really is. I feel like that's a good place to stop, yeah? If there was an LGBT moment of 2016 that was really important to you that I didn't mention, please shout it out in the comments section. Listen, we all deserve the world's biggest round of applause and infinite hugs and cookies for getting through this garbage dump of a year. I certainly couldn't have done it without this big, beautiful community that's spread all across the world, and for all of our sakes, I hope that 2017 is even a little bit brighter. Have an amazing new year, be kind to yourself, and I will see you in 2017. Mwah! Bye.